Hello everyone. I wanted to do a recording to talk about the Starforge SI stuff. I think there was a couple things that was missed in terms of the comments, reviews, or otherwise. Before I get into it, I just want to give a quick heads up to anybody who may be new to this channel or listening to this recording that I'm disabled. One of my disabilities does deal with communications, so I do struggle in that department. I am doing my best to correct that, but it's going to be a very, very long road before that's fixed. With that said, let me go ahead and start with a basic before we get onto the screen. Okay, NVENC. You may have heard about it with stream encoding or things like that, but most people don't truly know what it is. To be fair, I didn't either until I talked to an Nvidia staff member. But NVENC is a lot more complicated than people are probably aware of. That's because it's a separate chip on the video card. It is preset to 1080p. If you change resolution, do any psycho tuning or things like that, the chip will draw from the GPU itself. That may or may not be an issue, depending on the application. Be aware, however, that most games today use more video card than processor, plus or minus some exceptions like Control. For whatever reason, Control used an unusual amount of processing power in comparison to other games of its time. And I haven't seen anything like Control in a very long time, so I guess it's not really something to worry about. But either way, I wanted to make sure I brought that up so that you are aware that it may not be an issue most of the time, but be aware also that games do use a lot of video. Real quickly on the resolution, I just want to bring up one more thing. And this applies not to just Twitch, but any streaming platform. It's to do with the resolutions. If the video player on the platform doesn't have a quality option, then that might present an issue to your viewer count. And I can explain that with data. If you were to do a Google search of how many people are on mobile for your viewer count, there's likely a site that's tracking that data. For Twitch, however, I have not been able to find anything more recent than 2019. I'm not sure why. Maybe Twitch closed off its API or something. Who knows? But either way, the 2019 statistics for Twitch was 39%. So 39% of your mobile or of your viewers are mobile. So there's a reason I brought up that encoder earlier. It's because most mobile devices will struggle at anything higher than 720p, even to this day. It really depends on the device and things like that. But generally speaking, it's safe to assume 720p is the best for your mobile streamers. So if you don't have that quality option change that I was mentioning earlier, you could hurt your viewer count by not moving to that resolution. I thought it would be worth mentioning given that we just talked about NVENC and how it's preset to 1080p. But moving on now. Let's actually talk about the comments now. I am surprised that Linus Tech Tips or the other tech channels don't mention this, but there are rare case examples where just some freaky stuff happens when you're dealing with brand name /SIs. And this is probably the most freaky I've seen in a very long time. You'll notice in order to get this result, I typed in MSI desktop computer and SSD issue. The video I'm looking for is the second search result, David does tech stuff. And the reason I'm looking for this specific video is because according to his pinned comment and the video, as far as I can tell, this particular model of MSI desktop refused to work with any SSD other than the one it came with. He thinks it has something to do with the Windows imaging that MSI used when installing this computer. But whatever the case may be, this is the freaky stuff that you'll run into when you're dealing with brand SIs that use custom parts. It is always better to have brand name parts in your system, not just for reasons of upgrading, but also so you avoid these freaky issues that do pop up. That said, I want to bring up the brand name part thing now. So you'll notice for this search result, I typed in ASRock B550M Steel Legend and overclock. And if you scroll all the way down, you can see Tweaktown did a review on this and an overclock. Tweaktown wasn't the only one to overclock with this motherboard. This is a very underrated motherboard. And here's a picture of it for those who are wondering why this is underrated. It's because if you were to compare the benchmark results from the various reviews, you'll notice that its overclocking score was on par or near the results of motherboards that were $200+. That's a big deal because this motherboard, I think it was $160 when it was brand new. I know it dropped down to $150 in recent times with sales dropping it to $130. But yeah, so you're talking about a motherboard that's less than $200 competing with $200+ motherboards and overclocking. So this is a great example to show you that some brand name parts are quite honestly over-engineered. And yeah, so this is why you want to use brand names. Not just for the reasons I just mentioned earlier, but also because you get higher quality as well on the part, is where I'm going with this thing. So yes, brand name for the win. And if you are going to be using brand names as a SI or builder, please do your research because you have to really do some deep diving to find hidden gems like this. Okay, but that said, let's go ahead and get into M-ATX. This is something else that I'm honestly surprised is not talked about more often between Linus Tech Tips or the other tech channels, and that's M-ATX in general. Given that Starforge is aimed at streamers, it's highly unlikely that they'll need workstation level hardware, meaning a 4080, 4090, ATX motherboard and all that. More than likely, a 4070 will get you by an M-ATX motherboard with maybe an 8-core processor. Honestly, that can get you by with a lot of streaming stuff. If you don't believe me, you can look at the other tech YouTube channels for their results. But either way, the reason I'm bringing this up is because that's going to be my target based on what they're marketing. So knowing that, M-ATX is a really good option, not just for that particular scenario, but also for costs. If you'll notice, in previous launches, and even with this launch that is just happening, M-ATX is usually going to be cheaper than the ATX, and we can even see that if you were to tab over to Newegg. There's a AMD motherboard for the next gen at $170. Here's an Intel at 180. You'll notice the next one up for it's 200, and it's 190 over here. So it's a small savings, but you know, wherever you can save money, you can definitely put towards another part. So I wanted to make sure I just pointed that out. But there's another reason too. It's not just the individual costs of the components, it's also the shipping. That's another thing you have to deal with. So here's a really cool thing you can do. If you're an SI or builder within the United States at least, and I'm sure probably the mail systems for other countries have something similar, but you'll notice it has a shipping calculator on the USPS website, which is a great way to estimate what you're dealing with. So, because M-ATX cases are smaller than ATX cases, all you would have to do is get the dimensions to the M-ATX case and the ATX case and compare what their shipping costs would be, which you can do through this calculator, or ones like it, depending which country you're in. So yeah, it's more than just saving on individual parts, it's also saving on shipping. With that mentioned, I just want to quickly deviate into a little topic here. M-ATX motherboards are going to be cheaper than ITX motherboards most of the time. I don't think that there's been a time where that's changed, but either way. ITX can go even smaller with cases, which could potentially save on costs. However, because ITX is more expensive than M-ATX, I'm not sure how much you can truly save by going to a smaller case. So maybe somebody with a mathematician or market person could look into that, seeing what you would save doing ITX versus M-ATX. But either way, it should be pretty close to each other, I would imagine. But that's just my guess. I mean, I'm not a mathematician or anything. but it would still probably be interesting to know, not just for curiosity's sake, but also for these brand names SIs. Anyways, that's all I really have on this topic for now. If you have any questions, comments, or otherwise, just drop it in the comments, and please be respectful. I do not deal with flaming. Those comments will get deleted. Thanks.